Take a listen to this.
My little pony, my little pony. My little pony. I used to wonder what friendship could be. My little pony. Until you all shared its magic with me. Big adventure, tons of fun. A beautiful heart, faithful and strong. Sharing kindness, it's an easy feat. And magic makes it all complete. You have mine. Did you know you're all my very best friends?
Okay, well, that's the theme song to My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. It's a recent animated series based on the popular 1980s toy, brightly colored ponies with brushable manes. The new TV series, launched over a year ago, is popular with its intended audience, 2 to 11-year-old girls. But it's also caught on with another, less predictable group of My Little Pony fans. I'm talking about Bronies, a term that combines bro with ponies. These are tech-savvy guys in their teens, 20s, and 30s who happen to be compelled by the goings-on of pony characters such as Twilight Sparkle, Princess Celestia, and Rainbow Dash. Vauhini Vara is a staff reporter at the Wall Street Journal, where she recently has written about the Brony phenomenon, and she joins me today from San Francisco. Hello, Vauhini.
Hi, Jan.
So give us a portrait of a typical Brony. What kind of guy is he, and just how interested is he in My Little Pony?
Sure. So these tend to be guys who are really, really tech savvy, like you said, really into sort of internet culture. A lot of them tend to be the trend, the interest sort of originated on this website 4chan, which is this website for, tech savvy hacker culture sort of guys. So sort of, maybe like the exact opposite of the profile of somebody that you would expect to watch a pony show, like picture that, and that's a Brony.
And so how exactly did the phenomenon arise? How did this subculture of guys start to find each other?
So it's interesting. There was there's this website called 4chan, like I said, and it's sort of a message board where techie guys from all over the world communicate and post links and so on. And so at some point back in October of 2010, someone started posting videos and articles about this new television show called My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. And the intent, so the first couple of conversations about this show were characterized by people, largely making fun of it. And then, as it turned out, a couple of guys started actually watching clips of this TV show and kind of fell in love with it. And so this flame war broke out on this website 4chan, where half the guys on the site thought the show was the most horrible thing ever invented, and half the guys were obsessed with it. And there was even a point at which the Bronies were banned from from talking too much about ponies on 4chan, right. And eventually it got so bad that they just broke off and started their own websites.
Right. There was sectarian questions within the website. So and just to clarify, like My Little Pony, having seen what the Bronies are up to, I might say that, My Little Pony toys are very pretty. They have pretty long hair that you can brush. But just to make it clear, there isn't anything particularly fetishistic in their love for these characters and toys, right?
No, there is absolutely not. That's a good point to make. These guys are sort of wholeheartedly, wholesomely in love with ponies.
They love they love the show.
Secular, non-platonic way. In love with them in the show. Yeah.
So so be more specific about that if you can. You've talked to several Bronies. What did they tell you about why, as adult men, they love this show aimed at little girls?
So I went and met up with a bunch of Bronies in Berkeley several weeks ago, and my favorite distillation of all this came from a 15-year-old kid in this Berkeley group. We were at an Indian restaurant watching the show on TV, and he turns to the rest of the group and he goes, the characters aren't one-dimensional. They have flaws. They have backgrounds they're ashamed of, which is sort of an adorable way of pointing out that that it's a pretty well-written show. And, these characters are well-written. People, including, as it turns out, 20-something guys, feel that they can identify with the characters. Some of these guys tend to be like animation nuts, too, and the animation on the show is quite good. So they're into that as well. So,
right, it is, and having watched it a bit now, it is well written. There's some great dialogue that can happen. We spoke to Sean Scodolero. He's a 23-year-old Brony in New Mexico who runs this very popular Brony fan site called Equestria Daily. Here's what he had to say about the appeal of the show.
The appeal to My Little Pony to guys in their 20s, I'd say it's mainly, like, what I usually use is Pixar films. A lot of adults like to watch Pixar films, like How to Train Your Dragon, or I think that's DreamWorks, but stuff like that. They have a lot of humor hidden in them for the more adult fans, like stuff that we would only recognize as opposed to little girls. And the characters are really cute. The storylines are fun. Its production quality is great. The writing style is awesome. The slapstick humor is really good. The voice acting is really good, too. I mean, that's not something you usually get in cartoons these days. If someone told me a year ago that I would be into ponies, I think they'd be completely insane.
Well, at least he admits that. So that's Sean Scodolero, he's in his mid-20s. He's a man who runs the popular Brony fan site Equestria Daily. He's obsessed with My Little Pony. And by the way, he says he gets 500,000 page views per day. There are numerous fan sites like Equestria Daily and local get-togethers and conventions for Bronies. Vauhini, you even attended a Brony convention or a gathering in California. What do they talk about when they get together?
It was lovely. They so the one I attended, I wouldn't call it a convention. It was sort of like a meetup of about 20 Bronies. Many of them brought their pony toys, which they took out and displayed on the table, and kind of compared notes. And the funny thing is that these guys love the show. A lot of them have quibbles with the way that the official toys from Hasbro look. And so what they do is that they sort of hack their toys, to use a 4chan term. So, for instance, there's like a princess on the show named Princess Celestia, and she is white on the show, and the Hasbro toy is pink. And so these guys at the meetup spent a lot of time talking about what they do in order to turn their pink Celestia toys white. One woman actually at the meetup had painted her Celestia with white out. There were also comments about how one should leave one's Celestia out in the sun to bleach white, which is a favorite practice. So it was conversations like that, and talk about the show, of course, and explanations of why the show is so cool, and we watched the show.
And there's even
so essentially the conversation centered around the show.
There's a Brony metal band called Nay Slayer. Nay Slayer. So Lauren Faust is the 36-year-old creator of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. This is the recent TV show. She does have some history working on children's shows with crossover appeal, such as the Powerpuff Girls. To what extent do you think I don't want to try and suggest conspiracies here, but to what extent do you think the crossover success of My Little Pony was intentional?
Yeah, that's a good question. And from everything I can tell, it doesn't seem that it was. It seems that the sort of savvy, animation history producer kind of people working on the show appreciate the interest on the part of animation nuts and Bronies in particular. Certainly Hasbro and Discovery Communications, when they put this show together, were not expecting this and kind of don't know how to deal with it. So when we talked with Hasbro, they gave us a spokeswoman from Hasbro gave us a very reserved statement, which was, from what we've seen, they're a small group of My Little Pony fans who don't necessarily fit what one might expect to be the brand's target audience. And so they're not in love with the Bronies. They're not, getting excited about this phenomenon,
what about
although the show's producers are.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do the show's producers say?
So we, when we tried to get in touch with the show's producers, Hasbro gently suggested that we just talk to, some spokespeople and the head of the hub instead. Although the guy who now is the supervising director of the show was a special guest at BronyCon, and I was looking at his Twitter feed. I exchanged a couple of emails with him and was reading his tweets. And after he attended BronyCon, which is the big conference in New York, he tweeted that the enthusiasm completely floored me! Exclamation point. So he's into it, I think.
Well, on the one hand, when the first hearing about it, you kind of have a chuckle, but on the other hand, upon discovering this more, it seems quite beautiful, really. I mean, we spoke to culture reporter Angela Watercutter at Wired magazine about the Bronies. She says she thinks the subculture displays what she called neo-sincerity, the idea that things can be appreciated unironically and without guilt, and she thinks that Bronies help actually break down gender stereotypes because they're men who sincerely like something directed at young girls. What do you think about that?
That seems. I'm not a cultural critic, so it's hard for me to pontificate on that. But that seems. My gut reaction is that that's right on. I mean, another interesting thing to note is that. So I learned about the Bronies because a good friend of mine came over and was staying with me and my husband for a couple of weeks, and I kept hearing this theme music in the other room, which I thought was horrible to listen to and grating. And I walk into the room and it turns out he's watching this pony show, and it turns out he's a Brony. So he introduced me to the phenomenon, which is how I ended up eventually writing the story. And when I talk to, I'm 29 years old. When I talk to friends in their 20s, it turns out that they end up being less surprised by the phenomenon, I think, than when I talk to, my editor, for example, who's, in his 50s. And so I think there is something of a cultural shift going on that's hard to pin down. But, the neo-sincerity movement is something that I've heard. Maybe it's related to, people playing with brightly colored balls when they work at Google or whatever.
Well, I've only got a minute left with you here, but since you've been covering the Bronies, and I would imagine watching My Little Pony as research as well, what would you distill it down to? The ultimate. I mean, do you understand the appeal?
I do. I understand the appeal. I certainly am not. So there are some female Bronies. I'm certainly not one of them. I'm not really into lol cats and, cute pictures of animals on the internet. The whole cute culture thing is sort of escapes me. And so maybe I'm not the best person to ask. But when I watch, I can on an academic level, I certainly appreciate it. It's a fun show. It's a cute show. The producers have fun with it. It's totally inoffensive. I wouldn't call myself a Brony.
Vauhini, it's a pleasure getting to talk to you today. Thanks for the research on this, the piece on it, and I guess we'll keep watching the Bronies. Watch My Little Pony.
Absolutely. It was good talking with you.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
That's Vauhini Vara, staff reporter at the Wall Street Journal. She's recently written about the Brony phenomenon. She joined me today from San Francisco.